Welcome to Grassroots Iowa, conversations at the crossroads of faith and politics. I'm your host, Jeremy Higgins, and today we're stepping into the heart of what it means to love your neighbor, to steward God's creation, and to stand for your family in the face of powerful interests. Our guest today is John Lee. He's a devoted Christian, a husband, a father of 3 girls, and a small business owner. John finds himself on the front lines of a battle right in his own backyard, fighting to stop the proposed Morgan Valley Energy Center from being built directly behind his home. We're going to talk about transparency, or maybe a lack thereof, community impact, rural voices, and how faith can shape our response to difficult challenges. John, welcome to the show. Really blessed that you're here with us today.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So I'll tell you what, let's start. I like to start all of these conversations pretty much the same way. Tell us a little bit about your faith, that spiritual background, and then we'll build on that.
Yeah, I think I have a fairly common upbringing, church every Sunday,
Nice.
Sunday school, all the things, youth group growing up. And I think like many people, not excited to share it, but for many years after I moved out, I became pretty lukewarm.
Yep.
It wasn't common for me to prioritize church. Got married to the most amazing woman I've ever met in my life.
I love
And I think about the time we had our first daughter, it started becoming a lot more important to get back to church. And then just my growth with that, a big part of that getting back to church was my godfather. His daughter passed away in a terrible car accident.
Oh, man. That's rough.
And that reconnected us. And just really that was a big jump start to my faith journey.
Tragedy can really connect us to faith when we let the Lord work in the midst of it, as difficult as that is. And I'm so sorry for the loss, but I'm blessed to hear that it led you in the right direction and helped to root you.
Yeah, it was a blessing for me to reconnect with him and just see how deeply rooted he was in his faith and the reason why he was my godfather and brought me back. I didn't realize how I was not really ever good at being a Christian.
Right.
And I've grown a lot, just so much in my faith since then.
I love that. So you mentioned your bride. Tell us, how long ago did you get married? You have a daughter. You have 3 daughters. We know that. Tell us just a little bit about each of them, and then maybe we can kind of lead from there into your typical day. What does a day in Iowa look like for you guys?
Yeah. So got married. This year will be 15 years.
Nice.
Really great. We have an 11-year-old daughter. Really bright. She's a lot like me, so we butt heads a little bit,
I love it, yeah.
but it's awesome. 9-year-old daughter that just got a heart of gold. She's super empathetic, just there for everybody.
Oh, cool.
And then I have an 8-year-old that just is there for the fun, and she's just a whole lot of fun.
I love it. That's awesome. So you own Lee's Lawn and Landscape. That kind of plays into your property out there in the country as well. What's a day look like for you guys? You live outside of town. That's the dream, right? My wife and I, a couple years back, got some land outside of town, which is actually in the proposed impact area of all of this. And so I was glad that you brought it to my attention because I hadn't heard about it before. That's probably a lot of people's story in the impact zone there. What's that day look like?
Yeah, so we were very blessed to find a great property just after we got married. It's just a few miles out of town. We're on a gravel road right off Highway 30. So it's just an amazing location for us. We moved in just after we got married, before we had our youngest, and it was an old farmhouse that needed a lot of fixing up.
Sure.
So we've spent 10 years. 10 years it took us to put an addition on and remodel everything, and we now have 5 bedrooms instead of the 3 it had.
Yeah.
We've just redone the entire house.
Wow.
It's been a big work in progress.
Sure. And so is that where your shop is as well?
Yeah. So when we bought the house, it had a building that we planned on moving the shop into. So yeah, we work right out of my office is out in the shop, and the guys show up and we work out of there. Yep.
So right out your back door then, looking, what is that? South, north? I mean,
Yeah, it's just west, a little bit northwest. right out our back door. The kids can walk right out the back door and walk right to where this thing's going to be built without having to cross a road.
That's crazy. So maybe unpack that for us. Like, when did you first hear about it? Because from what I understand, when I was reading through the documents that you shared, the Save the Morgan Valley documents, it highlighted how a lot of residents in your area only learned about this. And let me get this number right: 720 megawatt gas fired facility after all of this significant permitting was already underway. And so it wasn't like they came to you, hey, we have this idea years down the road. Uh, how did that hit you?
Yeah, that was like a ton of bricks. March 23rd was the initial meeting to kind of let everybody know what they were proposing, and I think I was in total awe. A neighbor came and stopped and said, "Hey, there's a meeting tomorrow night. You better go."
Hmm.
So I went. Me and my wife went, and yeah, I didn't know what to say that night.
Yeah. So maybe explain to us, because truth be told, when I read it in the documents, it didn't really mean anything to me. I'm not the engineered mindset. What's a 720 megawatt gas fired facility really look like? Can you give us some comparisons? How big are we talking?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a question that even I, as I sit here talk to you, have a hard time understanding, comprehending.
Sure.
That 720 megawatt gas-fired power plant is giant. It's going to take up about 30 acres, just the footprint.
Oh, wow.
I think, from what I understand, because the information is not all clear to us, but 150-foot stacks. So big smokestacks, there'd be three of them, 150 feet tall, which is hard to picture,
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think helps me understand is they're going to need a 36-inch diameter or 3-foot tall gas pipe, high pressured natural gas line. So we have a 3-foot diameter pipe that's going to have high pressure natural gas flowing through it. And that's how big of a gas pipe they need to feed this facility.
Wow. So where's that running in from? And maybe talk a little bit about that 3 foot wide gas pipe, because it sounds like that's a significant part of the worry in relation to a potential danger zone that this facility might, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So in the docket with the Iowa Utilities Commission in the application, where they're going to get the gas from is actually still confidential. So we don't know that.
Wow. Yeah, that seems pretty sketchy right off the top. If they're not willing to, expose something like that, how they're going to feed this plant, you have to wonder, are we talking more additional eminent domain conversations? Are they going to be tearing up farms and fields and all kinds of things to get that gas there? Because if they can't get the gas to the plant, that's a big deal. We don't want to, suppose too much, but I think that's the danger of not sharing the information, is you leave all kinds of room for subjection and guesses. And so, okay, so 720 megawatt facility, in relation to like the nuclear power plant. Maybe are there some comparisons there that we should be aware of?
Yeah, that's another great. Thanks for bringing that up. So Dwayne Arnold Nuclear Power Plant, right now it's set to be a 620 megawatt facility. So, and I believe that's what it was before it was decommissioned.
Yeah.
But so what we're talking about here is bigger than the amount of power that the Dwayne Arnold
Wow.
put off to begin with.
That's pretty crazy. So we talked about you're a husband, a father of three girls. Maybe tell us, what's your biggest personal worry about the potential, like air quality, noise, lighting, traffic impacts, just daily life stuff. And maybe let's also tie that into short and long term health.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that my personal biggest concern is just the health and well being of my children
Right.
and my family.
Yeah, of course.
And there's a lot of concerning things because there's very little information that we can get about the actual, what's going to happen to us living for long term next, within a half a mile of a power plant like this.
Sure.
There's a lot of information that's speculative. there's a lot of information or a lot of things from different organizations that say that it's bad to live there, but actual studies. I've
Right.
asked Alliant Energy directly more than once about find me studies. It's 2026. We can do studies
Sure.
on figure things out and the questions that I'm asking about the health of my children and my neighbors and overall our family.
Yeah. And so I think that's a big part of this is just, if for instance, because keep in mind, and you've already shared this with us, you've moved there a decade ago. You've spent the last 10 years rebuilding that home. It would be different. This would be a different conversation if the power plant was already there and you decided to move to where that was. But that's not the conversation we're having. You guys live there, and not just you guys. We're talking about a significant community of people. This affects folks in Lynn County as well as Benton County. So we're not just talking about a dozen families here, right?
Absolutely. There is way more people that live really close to this than I would have even expected. The more research that I'm doing, so yeah, you're exactly right. If a power plant was there when we moved out there, then that's a totally different
Yeah, right.
conversation. And the comprehensive plan that Lynn County has and the land use map doesn't show anything about future industrial development in that area.
Hmm.
There's nothing that signifies to us that anything would change.
Right. So I think one of the major concerns that was raised, as I was looking through the documents is a lack of site specific meteorological monitoring, baseline air testing, long term community monitoring. From your conversations with the Iowa DNR and probably other conversations, what have you learned about how or if real world data from Morgan Valley itself is going to be used? What is the plan? Is there a plan? Have they shared anything with you guys?
Yeah, so I've had long communication with the people that actually will be giving the permit or writing the permit and that assess everything. And yes, they have given me very clear answers that there is no site specific air or weather testing. I've been really worried about it's called Morgan Valley
Yeah.
power plant because we live in the valley. My home is in the valley by Morgan Creek, um, and we asked the DNR very directly about the possibility of microclimate and how their air modeling takes that into effect. And it was very hard for us to get down into the weeds with them about some of this, but in the end, they're going to use modeling. They're going to use some kind of surrogate technology they have after they admitted that or that acknowledged that they do believe that it is a microclimate there. They use some kind of surrogate technology to figure out the elevation difference. So it's their professional opinion that no air or weather testing needs to be done at this site before or after. We've got that in writing. There's a few minor details that they still need to figure out, but from everything that we're getting from them, there's no need to do any site specific baseline before or after weather testing for something of this magnitude is what concerns us a lot.
Yeah, that seems pretty crazy when you're talking about the kind of smokestacks that it's going to have. And again, go back to that 3 foot diameter gas line. Being that it's in a valley, what would happen if, say, that gas line, because a high pressure gas line, it's not really the same as some of the other ways that we're moving natural gas around the country. Um, what would happen in a valley where you're living, where people, human beings are breathing? If some of this, have they unpacked any of that for you guys? Because I feel like there's
Yeah, I think that that's a great question, and wow, that's something that I haven't considered very much. Like if an emergency type situation happened, there's been very little talk of that. I've talked to Lynn County a lot. I've come to understand from the get go, and we stay in pretty well constant communication with many of the towns. But Atkins Fire District, it's an Atkins Fire District which is in Benton County, and it's my understanding that there's been no communication with Atkins
oh wow.
uh, City or Fire District of what potentially would happen or any emergency planning. I've talked with the Lynn County Emergency Management, and it's something where something like this isn't really. on their radar until it's done, and they want to have Lynn County Emergency Management kind of look over this to make sure, if something catastrophic happens, that they have the right plans in place. So there's a lot of things that are alarming the
Sure.
deeper you
I mean,
get.
the documents, they even pointed out kind of a fragmented oversight system. No
Yeah.
single agency seems to be responsible for looking at, kind of the cumulative impacts on public health, water, land use, even future growth, which would seem limited. I doubt people are going to, if this does get built, want to keep moving into the area. What do you believe should be done? Like, who should be accountable for asking whether this project is truly appropriate for the location, not just whether it meets minimum technical standards? Because it seems like those are different things. A minimum technical standard is not, hey, is this appropriate for this place with these people that already exist?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and that hits a lot of things that we as a group of Save Morgan Valley and me personally are really concerned about, because I've spent countless hours trying to study and understand who do I talk to about making sure the cumulative impact of this is really understood and is really taken into account. And I can't find anyone, and
Hmm.
I do believe, so we have uh, three board of supervisors for Lynn County,
Yeah.
and they're elected officials. And I've had personal conversations with all three of them. I go to all their meetings, um, and what I'm getting from them is pretty alarming, because before this, I wasn't really into politics too much.
Sure.
I had go vote, kind of pay attention to the big things,
Yep.
but it's really really alarming the more understanding I have, because there's a few of the board members that are telling me that, hey, as long as this meets the ordinances and the requirements for land use, like I don't know why you expect me to vote differently than, we're not here to judge whether we think it should go there or not. Is kind of what I'm understanding from
Wow.
them, and what they've pretty much directly told me, and that's really concerning for an elected official, because
Right.
there is a lot of people there's a lot of people that don't want this, and there's
Yeah. A minimum standard doesn't equal
yeah.
is this healthy for the environment? The project, it's also being discussed alongside of potential large scale data centers and thousands of acres of future industrial development. Now, how do you see this power plant fitting into a bigger picture for maybe rural and Lynn Benton counties? Uh, what concerns are there within all of that that kind of,
Yeah, that's another big topic. So at a Fairfax City Council meeting, I think maybe about a month ago, um, they discussed publicly that there have been developers that have approached them about developing the property to the east of there. Um, I think all the way over to 80th Street, about 3 square miles of development that they've talked to about. And I've talked to several people that are well aware of the situation, that have told me that, yeah, there's people, developers looking at that. And
specifically for data centers? Is
yeah,
that right?
yep, 3 square miles.
That's significant. And is that why they're building the power plant? I mean, have they even detailed the specific need for such a great
Yeah,
significant power?
that's a great question as well. So Alliant Energy has not really stated an exact need for it, because state of Iowa is a net positive producer, or I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. We sell power to other states,
Right.
historically, and they're saying that there's going to be a need, that they want to get ahead of that, and they want to build this before that need or requirement is there.
But
They're
it's
they're
unclear if it's Iowa's need or
yeah,
uh,
that's kind of
someone
what they're
else's.
saying. They're saying that they're expecting a need, but I will say that there has been much talk. Behind closed doors, there's many elected officials that have told me, like, we know that it's for the data centers that are being built. Um, we know that it's for that. Alliant Energy, in a meeting early on, stated that it's for the data centers, but yeah, they're not saying that anymore.
Hmm. I heard that, water use came up pretty strongly in community meetings, especially in Cedar Rapids. Uh, can you share what happened when residents tried to speak at the city council meeting and why that process felt unfair to those living outside city limits? Because, again, that's part of the problem here.
Yeah, yeah, I just spoke about that yesterday at Cedar Rapids again. Um, so so those of us that are affected outside of city limits are not allowed to speak at a city council meeting if our address is not within the city limits, or we don't own property and we don't own a business. So I have an office in Cedar Rapids that allows me to speak, but there's only a few of us in the group that are able to. So we've asked them to have a special meeting to talk about this, because I actually spoke with the mayor of Cedar Rapids yesterday about whether or not they've ever sold. I mean, whether or not piped gas out of the city limits before like this, and it was just a conversation. So it sounds like she's not aware of doing it in any other locations. It was a really great conversation, and I appreciated having that with her.
Yeah.
But sounds like a first, and so I asked her. I said, "Well, that's all the more reason to have a public conversation, because we can't find where there's been any public conversation with the city of Cedar Rapids about them doing this, that residents were allowed to be a part of the conversation."
Sure, that's interesting. It seems like rural communities often feel like they bear the burden of big infrastructure projects while they have limited say in how that plays out. Do you see that as part of a larger pattern in Iowa? And what would rural fairness look like in a permitting process? Like, what would you hope? How could they have done this better?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think local officials, the county, I think that there is some degree that they are reactive to, because they don't know what place like Alliant, they don't know what their plans are to begin with and how long they've been working on this stuff. But appropriately, I think that it's really important for elected officials to listen to the people.
Yeah, amen.
And that is what I feel like is not happening right now. And also, I think, in fairness to elected officials in Lynn County, especially the Board of Supervisors, they may be supervisor of different areas in the county, but there's very limited access to information to those areas. Like I feel like the people, the residents closest to this, are burdened with trying to let everyone else in the county
Right.
know what's going on, because people have heard the word Morgan Valley Power Plant and things like that, and they think we're talking about Duane Arnold. We just ran into a resident over the weekend over in Fairfax. They're just about 2 miles away, a little over 2 miles away, and they thought that the money Fairfax was trying to raise for an attorney to fight this was for the Duane Arnold situation.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't even know, and we said, no, look over the hill. You're going to be able to see the stacks right there from where we're standing. So the awareness, even close, is just really hard for us to understand what we should be doing, but also what our elected officials or news media should be doing, because we feel like there's people that have engaged with us, but it just doesn't feel like people are learning about it and understanding what we're really talking about.
Right. And I think that's always one of the most difficult parts of a situation like this is how do you get the information out to the most amount of people in the best way possible too. We want to make sure that we're getting the right information out. Neither John or I, in fairness, are experts in any of these areas. We're only sharing what we have learned to the best of our ability. I would encourage, if you're listening to this and this interests you, and I hope if you live in Lynn or Benton County, it at least sparks interest, that you'll start digging into it yourself to find out, what are the facts and how do those facts play out. But it's really hard to get information in front of large groups of people. And I think the system is to some degree designed that way. I'll tell you what, the Save the Morgan Valley group has put forward some pretty great questions to candidates, to policymakers. If you could choose one of those questions, what do you think would be the most urgent one right now to get answered, to give you and your neighbors some confidence in, there's a process going on here. There's a process at work.
Question for an elected official, I
An
think.
elected official or Alliant themselves. I mean, because it's not just Alliant. Alliant's partnering with another electric company, it sounds like, to do this.
Yeah, well, it'll be a power plant that is Alliance. There's many other. Man, that's a great question. you know, how how do we know we're going to be safe?
Yeah,
How do we
there it
know
is.
the residents that live within a mile or two? Lynn County recognized a 2.25-mile setback to communities, but they're placing this in a location that in Benton County it's only 1.7 miles from Atkins.
Hmm.
Um, how how do we know the people are going to be safe? Because if Alliant can't provide me information about the health and well-being of my children in the proximity we are to it, and they're not giving me information about the proximity that's 1.7 miles away either, how do we know we're going to be safe? And what governing body is going to keep us safe?
Yeah.
Because that's who I want to talk to, and that's the biggest answer that I don't have.
Yeah, I love that. And for those listening, you need to know I didn't give John a list of questions I planned on asking him, and I asked him that question blind for a reason. He didn't say my property values. He said my family's well-being. He's talking about the health and the well-being of his wife and his daughters, and certainly of those in the neighboring communities, his neighbors that live close to this, that don't know what the future holds for their homes, for their health. In an era where we already have so many questions about our health in Iowa, there's so many conversations right now about the water that's in the ground and is that drinkable, and all the nitrates. And I mean, it's hard enough already reading some of the data about Iowa leading the nation in cancer rates. And we love this state. We love this place. We love the people here. I don't agree with everybody on everything, but that's part of what makes America a beautiful place to live. And I'll be honest, it's part of what attracts me to Iowa. You may not agree with all of your neighbors on everything, but at the end of the day, we're still neighbors. And the Word of God, it tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves. And that's not property values. That's health. That's well-being. Certainly, there's a spiritual factor within this as well.
That
Um,
that's a huge thing that I've had conversations with people about is people, for me, it started as me and my family and my kids and my property, and it's really led me to I'm probably gonna mess this up, but the Bible, I think it's Isaiah, is it 6:8 or 8:6 maybe I'm getting, but like send me.
Amen.
Someone's
Yes,
got to
it's
stand up, and a lot of people have a lot of questions, and there's not very many people willing to stand up and ask those questions, and stand up to the podium and speak to city council or board of supervisors. There's an overwhelming amount of people that feel uncomfortable just going to those meetings,
sure.
you know. Um, but this is not where I thought I'd be a few months ago. With all of the meetings that I go to and feeling like a politician almost. But there's a lot to be said for iron sharpens iron. Send me,
Amen.
thinking
Amen.
about it, not just worrying about my own self, which is a thing that I have spent a lot of years doing, and this
Amen.
is
We all have.
this is a time that I can stand up, and it's not about a buyout for me. It's about leading the group of people that have entrusted me to speak up for them.
Hmm. I love that. You mentioned that a lot of people have a difficult time coming out and participating in these events. Do you think it's because they're just not feeling like they're heard when they're there to speak to their elected officials? And I hear that a lot about people when we're talking about schools and school boards. You go and speak at a school board meeting, and sometimes the school board members will be playing tic tac toe or reading books or something. They have to let you speak, but they don't have to listen when you speak. And I've heard of that from folks from time to time when it comes to city council meetings. And I'm somebody who likes to hold on to hope and believe that people have good hearts. Let me ask you this: what has the response been like from elected officials, agencies, even developers, whoever you've been able to talk to, when you're raising your concerns? Do you feel as if you're being heard, or is it they're pushing you off into the shadows?
That's a great question, and I wanna. There was two things that my mind keeps going to with what you just asked me, and one is, um, there's a lot of people that we talk to that say things like, "Oh, well, this is already done,"
Mm,
right? Like it's not even going to make a difference if I go. And there is a big difference in this situation, and that is that we got on this fight from the get-go. This is not done.
right.
Although there is a lot of things that happen that when people get in the fight, it is too far. All the research I've done, everything that we've been putting together, this fight is active. This fight,
Amen.
we are at the right time. We are applying pressure in a lot of places that's making a lot of people uncomfortable, and we're realizing that, and we're having things happen that are a little bit unexpected here and there. And sometimes it's harder for us, and sometimes it's exciting for us.
Sure.
But yeah, I think overwhelmingly we have so many people that are saying, isn't this already done?"
Right.
So that I want to speak to first. And the second part, yeah, it's really interesting that you ask that question, because the first speech I ever gave was to the Lynn County Board of Supervisors, and my kids were there. It was their day off of school,
Mm,
so they came with, and I gave a speech. And my middle daughter, she can just read a room like nobody's
that's
business.
awesome.
First thing she said when I sat down after that speech is she said to me, and she named him, and I'm not going to do that, but she named that person and said, "Dad, it didn't even look like they were paying attention.
Mm,
The other two were, but it didn't even look like they were paying attention."
yeah.
And then there was a different time where we had news media involved, and I was giving a speech, and then the news reporter right after the meeting came to me and said, "Yeah, so and so was on their phone while you were speaking."
Right.
You know, and and that's disturbing, I think, to a lot of people, to understand that I'm trying to fight for my community. I'm trying to fight for my beliefs, and I'm willing to have an open conversation with anyone, whether you believe or don't believe
Right.
what my beliefs are. Let's talk about it.
Right.
Let's have a respectful conversation.
Amen.
But when I feel like someone that is on the other side of my thoughts isn't, and they're an elected official, isn't even paying attention to what I have to say, I don't get up there and say the same speech every week. I have a different question, or I have a different concern, or this happened and I want you to know that kind of
Right.
thing. And so that's a hard thing to have happen.
Yeah. And I think that that's a fairly common feeling within, the general population of Iowa when, not just this situation, but in situations like this, when you feel like you need the attention of someone in charge, it's hard to feel as if they're listening. And we're hoping to change that. That's part of why we're having these conversations, Grassroots Iowa, conversations at the crossroads of faith and politics. Listen, that there is a point where we can all meet at those crossroads and have reasonable, meaningful conversations that can impact, again, like you said, people that believe the way that we do and people that don't. This isn't about faith in this sense. Everybody that's, a Christian, you stand on this side of the aisle or whatever. No, we should come together as a community of people who
Yeah.
love this state and care about the future of it, care about the health of its residents, and make decisions that matter. And it seems like folks are starting to lose faith that that's possible. And I, for one, I want to throw this out there again. I have hope. I believe that if you can get one person to stand up, if you stand up, like you said, "Here I am, send me." Well, when someone sees an individual stand, they tend to be willing to stand with them, and then maybe 10 will stand, and then seeing those 10 stand, 100 will stand, and so on, 1,000 and 10,000, and that's what we hope these kinds of conversations will allow, is people to first of all become aware of this kind of thing happening in their community, and then to hear that, hey, my voice can be heard, and it does matter if I show up, and it does matter if I speak, and it does matter if I care. How about this for listeners who may not live nearby? Because let's face it, not everybody that's listening is as close to this as you are. But that it doesn't mean it's not affecting them or won't affect them. Why should it matter to them?
Yeah. That's a great question, and you bring up a lot of great points. Um, this should matter, I think, to everyone because the decisions that are made here in this county and all across America, really, um, those decisions should be made with the people and constituents of that area.
Mm,
They should be taken into consideration
that's
first,
right.
not the builders, not the big money companies, not uh, the people that are in support of this because maybe their business or their boss or whatever it might be are going to profit from it. Um, Issues like this should come before elected officials and constituents of their area should be taken into account first before the lobbyist, before the big money companies, and they should carry more weight. And what I'm seeing is that's pretty hard to find
Right.
nowadays. And a few things that you mentioned, this is not a right or left side
Right.
situation. This is a bipartisan
It is.
situation. I mean, we've had people from all sides, even surprising me. Um, and then to another one of your points, I have an amazing, like I can't say enough about the group of people that surround me every day
Mm,
and once a week. It almost makes me emotional here saying it. There is an amazing amount of people, and that group of people has people from opposite ways of life,
yep.
opposite personalities that are difficult sometimes. But this group of people is plowing through this situation and brushing aside their differences for one common goal,
Mm,
and that is for the greater good of the people of this community.
amen. Amen. How many signatures have you gotten so far?
A lot,
Yes, that's good to hear.
a lot.
Good.
Yeah, so we have a petition going in opposition of this. Um, I don't know the figures, but
Okay.
we have a lot. I'm the guy doing conversations like this. We have a group of people that's keeping track of all that.
Oh, good. Good. Teamwork
So
makes the dream
yeah,
work, right? That's
absolutely.
important.
We have 3 or 4 different kind of areas of our group, and then there's different side things off of those.
Sure.
So it's
Well, and that's
we're
how you make a greater impact. Everybody
yes,
working with the same common goal,
yes,
using their various skills because let's face it, we all have different gift sets. And again, I think that's what makes
yeah.
this, it makes us a beautiful people, right? God created us, but He created us in different ways. And we can use those gifts that He's given us for His glory. And I love hearing that. I love hearing that you have a team working together to, help make sure at the very least that your voices are heard and certainly our hope and our prayer is that they're heard loud enough where the right decisions, they start to get to the right people so the right decisions can be made. I'll tell you what, looking ahead, what does success look like for you? Not just stopping the project, but even for the future of the area, like Morgan Valley, families like yours, what does success look like?
That's a great question. I think that I would have to say success looks like stopping this from happening in Morgan Valley,
Amen.
um, allowing the people that live there a sense of peace again. There's a lot of people that don't feel like they have peace right now. Um, yeah, and further forward, I'd love to. One thing that I thought at one of the speeches that I gave in front of Alliant Energy was just, I'm asking them uh, on March 24th what studies they've done, all these things, and I'm telling them about my kids and that we don't do technology at our house. I mean, the kids get very little screen time. We go outside and play.
Yes, I love
We
that.
have chickens. We do all the things, right? We're trying to raise our kids to be responsible people
Amen.
and respectful people. But that speech led me to think, um, when the kids move out, what place have I built for them to come back to with my grandkids?
Right.
You know, what what and that makes me almost emotional again. It's just
Sure.
like where I've been building for the last 15 years a place for my family to go, a place for us to be. Now don't get me wrong, if the Lord decides to strip that away from me, like that is what happens, and that is what happens to some of us.
Sure.
But that is not. I don't really think that that's what His plan is. And just that future vision of what Christmas looks like when I have grandkids,
Mm.
or what Thanksgiving, or what just a nice spring weekend when my daughter and her husband and my grandkids come out to the house and we can enjoy being outside. We can enjoy the house that I've built,
Yeah.
the space that we have,
Yeah.
things like that. And like I said, I don't know what the future actually holds, but that's kind of what I was thinking it might.
That's the picture you
So
painted
God
in
might
your
have
mind, yeah.
God might have a different plan for me, but I think that He's asked me to stand up and be a part of this, and really encourage others to stand up too. And there's
Yeah.
been several of us in this group, and people that I didn't know and don't know that are standing up against this too. So it's really, really exciting to see that.
That is exciting. I love hearing about a good community movement that, starts to shake the ground that, the higher ups are walking on. And I think that
Yeah.
that's always good for a community. It's good for our state. And you know what? In that regard, it's good for our country. So I hope that you guys continue to, ring the bell and make sure that you're being heard. What would you like people to hear on our way out here? How can people get a hold of you? Is there a website? How do they track? Do you have a schedule where folks can show up? And do you have a next speaking? What can you share?
Yeah, so there's many things. We're on social media. We have Save Morgan Valley at Gmail.
So an email, if
that's
you're
an email.
listening and this is affecting you, or you think it could, or you're even wondering if it might, what's the email?
The email is savemorganvalley at Gmail. We
All right.
also have savemorganvalley.com. Those are the two places that you can get a hold of our group. And then there's several other things. Can we talk about some of the other things that
Sure.
they can do? So one thing that I would encourage everyone that's in Lynn County to do is, if possible, attend a Board of Supervisor meeting. They are every Monday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. in the Gene Oxley building, down where you get your license plates and stuff. They're in the basement there. And show up at that meeting. I'm at all the meetings. There's usually a few of us at those meetings. And at the end of every meeting, there's time for public comment. And I would encourage anyone to, at the minimum, just stand up at public comment and just say that, hey, we don't think this is a good idea, or hey, we'd like you guys to look into this a little bit more and make sure that this is the right thing.
I love that. Yeah, I think just getting people to come out is the first step, and then letting that momentum build.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that I'll get in here quick. It's really probably the most important thing, and that is the Iowa Utilities Commission out of Des Moines. They oversee this whole thing.
Okay.
And they have a website, efs.iowa.gov, which maybe you can, if you go to savemorganvalley.com, you can find more information. But we need to put in what's called the docket objection. So you have to go into their website, create an account with an email, and then go into the docket number GCU 2026 0002. That's a lot of information. I'd recommend going to savemorganvalley.com.
Is there a direct link there?
There is. It's not a direct link, but it might be a direct link, but it's all the directions of kind of how to do it. A lot of people get confused trying to get that done.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is getting on the Iowa Utilities Commission and stating your objection to the Iowa Utilities Commission. That is the biggest thing. And then there's going to be 4 meetings that we don't know the dates of yet. One of them is a planning and zoning meeting for Lynn County. And then there's going to be 3 Lynn County supervisors meetings, that each of those meetings, 2 of the 3 supervisors need to vote yes for this to continue. So we need to show up at those meetings with everybody we have. We need to make it so there's so many people there, they know that they should vote no.
There you go. Anything else you want folks to hear?
I think I've stated the things that I wanted to say, but I think just don't be afraid to show up to a meeting. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. There's a lot of great people that are ready to explain this stuff and have personal conversations with anyone willing to understand and learn. We don't like and we don't want misinformation out there either. We want to help people understand. We don't think that we're asking something unreasonable.
Sure.
We think that our ask is reasonable. So if people think that it's unreasonable, we want to have that conversation with them too.
Yeah, amen.
Help us
I love hearing
understand.
that. Yeah, both sides of it. John, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your heart, your story. I'd even say your steadfast commitment to your family and to your community. In a world that often prioritizes power and profit, your willingness to stand up for what you believe in, it's right. And it's truly inspiring. Listeners, if this conversation stirred something in you, I'd encourage you, learn how you can get involved. Go to SaveMorganValley.com. Reach out to your own elected officials. Start asking them the appropriate questions and prayerfully consider how you can be involved at the grassroots level. This really is what Grassroots Iowa is all about. Real people, real faith, real impact. Until next time, I'm Jeremy Higgins, reminding you that the crossroads of faith and politics is where real change begins. God bless you and God bless Iowa.